Welcome inside the Hill City Highlights podcast, a podcast about the people of Lynchburg, for the people of Lynchburg. Now, here's your host, Alan York.
Welcome back inside our Hill City Highlights podcast, edition number 2. Last week,
it's the Hill City Highlights podcast, baby.
It's soon to be powered potentially by Alcova Mortgage.
Bang!
We'll see. Last week, we had Nadine Blakely with Remax, and I thought, let's bring in a local lender. And we're going to be joined by Jauch, who has an extensive background in a lot of things. And Joe, just wanted to get to know you a little bit. Tell us about where you're from, where you grew up, and then we'll get into your college football days in North Carolina.
Oh, that could be a long story, but I'll give you the much abbreviated version of it. Really grew up in Northern Virginia, just outside of D.C., Vienna, Virginia. Went to high school at James Madison High School, go Warhawks. And then ended up at the University of North Carolina to play a little football during Mac Brown's first stint there. I was in Mac Brown's first recruiting class at UNC back when I think he was 36 years old when he took the job at UNC as a young head coach, and was in his very first recruiting class there.
I went to Carolina football camp in the summer of 1990.
Wow.
Carl Torbush was on the staff. Mac Brown was in either year 1 or 2. It was great. What attracted you to Chapel Hill?
Well, I bet I probably did some drill work at that football camp. I remember they used to bring us back for the summer. So that would have been my junior year at UNC. And we used to come out and coach Jim Cavanaugh, who went on to Virginia Tech and stayed there for years, was my position coach. And he used to bring me out to do drill work. But what attracted me? What can't attract you to UNC? I guess is the question. UNC was just a beautiful place. My brother was actually playing football there at the time. We played together 1 year. He was a senior when I was a freshman. I just loved the campus, loved the social aspect of UNC. The academically, it was just top notch as you could get, and it just fell in love with the Carolina Blue. And I think a big part of UNC is, they always, the saying now within the recruiting circles is it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. And so I think what UNC does is they don't just talk about family, they really live it out, and people take care of each other. The network of people that you gain and the relationships that you gain after your college career is over was really phenomenal. And so everybody's still so close. Chapel Hill's a very tight-knit community and a great university. And I was, proud to play there, proud to graduate from there, and still go back to catch as many football games as I can when Liberty obviously isn't playing at home. And it was just a great place.
What positions did you play on the gridiron?
I played wide receiver. In high school, I played defensive back and wide receiver. Got recruited by some schools to play defensive back. I was recruited by Clemson to play defensive back, but I really wanted to play wide receiver. And that was obviously once I got to Carolina, I spent 4 years at wide receiver, and then another 5 playing in the CFL, the Canadian Football League, for 5 years at wide receiver also.
Take us back, Joe, to one game, maybe 2, that you still think about today being involved in at North Carolina. Our fans that listen to this podcast or watch it may remember that game. Is there one that kind of sticks out with your time with the Tar Heels?
Yeah, that one's easy, and especially with what's coming up for them to kick off the season, and that is South Carolina. We played South Carolina at South Carolina. I think it was 89 maybe. And then 90, we had him back. It was either 90 or 91. We had him back in Chapel Hill. And Natron Means, who was a great tailback for Carolina and then went on the NFL to have a great career, took San Diego Chargers to the Super Bowl back in the early 90s. And Natron was our tailback, took the ball down to about the 15-yard line. And then it was, I think the score was 17-14 South Carolina at the time. And we had a quarterback by the name of Jason Stanisak out of Chicago, Illinois, and became a really good player at UNC, and was a true freshman. And like I said, I think it was my junior year, and ran a little post corner route in the corner of the end zone, went over top of the defender, made the catch, back corner pylon, and brought it in and put us up 21-17, and that ended up being the final score. So to catch a winning touchdown against South Carolina and Chapel Hill was a great experience for me personally.
How about the game coming up to start the year this year? You going to it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've got to do I'll be doing the Liberty, since we're not doing the broadcast for this first game, Liberty versus Bowling Green. I'll be doing the pregame show for Liberty, and then after that's done, I'm gonna watch the Liberty game, and then hop in a car and the college game days in Charlotte, games at Bank of America Stadium where the Panthers play, and so it doesn't start till 7:30. So I'm gonna watch the Liberty game, hop in a car, and get down there in time to watch the Heels take on the Gamecocks. Exciting opening weekend for college football.
Joined by Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage, our guest here on the Hill City Highlights podcast, episode number 2. You mentioned your time in the CFL. Take us into that. Obviously, the rules a little bit different in the Canadian Football League, but what did you glean from that and spending 5 years up there north of the border?
Yeah, CFL is what a great game. It's just I love, especially as a receiver. You know, the motion rules where you can have all the receivers can be in motion at the same time really gives receivers advantage. The wider field's 15 yards wider. The end zones are deeper, 10 yards deeper than the college or NFL fields. And so it really opens up the game offensively, just gives so much more space for the receivers and doesn't condense the red zone down so much because of the longer end zone. So as a receiver, you couldn't ask for more. And it was just a really fun league. The league's been around forever, been around longer than the NFL. So I just enjoyed my time there. My dad was a head coach. My dad is, hopefully getting ready to be inducted into the CFL Hall of Fame as the 5th all-time winningest coach in the history of the CFL. So he was actually a head coach in Saskatchewan while I was playing in Hamilton for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And a funny story, I went to get ready for practice one day, and the equipment manager came to me and said, "Coach wants to see you in the office." And so it's in Hamilton. And so I went in to see Coach Sudds in the office, and he said, "Hey, just want to let you know that I traded you." And I said, "Traded me? But traded me?" He said, "Yeah, we traded you." I said, "Well, where'd you trade me to?" He said, "Your dad just traded for you in Saskatchewan." So I was like, "Oh, okay." And so my pops made a trade for me. I think he got a box of tape for it. That was about it. And I ended up in Saskatchewan and had a fun time there. And then played a year and a half. He actually retired after that year and a half. And then I signed with the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL. Montreal had just expanded back into Montreal and been there since 1982. And so that was a really fun year. So overall experience in Canada was a fun one.
Joined by Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage. We're going to get more into Joe's broadcasting career and the mortgage lending industry and why it's so important to Alcova and what Joe does in the Lynchburg area. Read a Facebook post on your Facebook page, Joe, about your dreams wanting to be a broadcaster growing up.
Yeah.
And you're getting to dabble in that a little bit. You spent some time with Jones Angel and the Carolina Radio Network. Obviously, your accomplishments with Liberty football here with Matt Warner on ESPN Plus speaks for itself. What about broadcasting do you enjoy? And tell us about those dreams as a younger kid and maybe some of the broadcasters you followed growing up.
It's funny. It is funny how you have dreams of doing. I always, wanted to be a broadcaster. Went to Carolina, got my degree in radio, television, and motion pictures with a focus on sports broadcasting, and just really wanted to do that. And then obviously my football career led me into the CFL for 5 years. I got married my last year, my wife and I in Montreal. And then soon after that, we had our first child, Jared. And it was like, whoa, I didn't have really time to climb the broadcasting ladder and being able to, start out low somewhere and then try to work my way up. Because obviously with a young family needed to make some money, and had gotten a job coaching at Liberty for a couple of years, but never ever after I settled in the mortgage business in 2000 did I think, well, that ship has sailed and there's no way I'll ever do broadcasting. But it's funny how, the Lord works things out, and I'm very extremely thankful. Back in 2018, when Casey Spiron came to me, Casey and I had been in Sunday school class together, and he came to me in 2018 and asked me for potentially an audition to be able to do this. And I was blown away by that. Didn't think it'd been so long that I could even do it. And, long story short, thankful for Matt Warner and the folks over at Liberty for just opening up the door for me to have the opportunity to do it. It was funny, like my first game against Old Dominion back in 2018, it was like put a microphone in my hand. I didn't realize how difficult this was. And so it took me Matt was very understanding and hung in there with me. So it took me a while to get it under my belt and figure out, how to make it entertaining. And hopefully Matt does a great job. I think Matt, and yourself too, Alan, both of you guys are two of the best that there is out there. And it's been an absolute pleasure working beside him. And then obviously, my to be able to do a Carolina game, got the opportunity to do the App State game last year, which was a 64-61 game. I believe that was the final score. Crazy game. Insane. It was my first game with Carolina, Jones Angel. Jones Angel obviously done national championship games for Carolina basketball and is legendary voice of UNC sports. And to be able to do that and got to do the Virginia game. So overall, the broadcasting thing is really what my passion is and what I really love. And it has been an absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to have the doors opened up to some wonderful people to work alongside.
Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage, our guest, episode 2 of the Hill City Highlights podcast. I want to go back to something you said, mentioned you worked a little bit for a couple of years as an assistant coach at Liberty. Who did you work under and how did that come about?
Yeah, I worked for Sam Rutigliano. So Coach Sam was obviously legendary Liberty coach, legendary NFL coach, came from the Cleveland Browns. I believe was a coach of the year in the NFL one year. And great man, great football coach. Knew a guy my brother had played with by the name of Derek Donald, who was working at Liberty at the time. And I was still playing the CFL. My wife and I just got married, and I was working out over there, spending a lot of time in the football office, getting to know the staff and just hanging around a lot. And it was one of those things where I really wanted to get into coaching. My dad was a coach, and basically I showed up at the door before anybody got there. Sam would be the first one there to open the door up, and I'd be there waiting just to listen and learn in the staff meetings. And after the persistence of doing that, he offered me the restricted earnings. Back then they called it the restricted earnings job. And I did that and really enjoyed it. They didn't have a full-time position to open up. So I went to William Campbell High School, coached basketball there and taught PE and did that for a year and a half. And then coached, was defensive coordinator for the high school team there at William Campbell. And then Liberty had a full-time position open up at the running back spot. Coach Mack had retired and Coach Sam called me up and offered me that job. And then, from there we, did that for a year, and then Coach Sam retired. And as I like to say, we retired along with him, but we all got fired.
And then you continued on here in the area with the mortgage lending business. So you were in Lynchburg before the Liberty opportunity, or did you come to Lynchburg because of the football opportunity?
Yeah, really shortly. My wife's from Lynchburg, and so back in '96 when we got married, I spent a little bit of time here, and then went to Montreal. Married in April and went to Montreal in June, and then came back obviously and settled down here. Been here since '96 after the football season. Been here ever since.
Well, a big part of this podcast, Joe, as our listeners and watchers on YouTube are starting to glean, is that I want to pull the curtain back between leaders in our community and get to know about their businesses that they're involved in and why it's so vital in the Lynchburg and surrounding area to learn more about it. Like we mentioned last week, we had a real estate agent on, and this week do want to talk about the lending business. How did you get involved in it?
Yeah, I mean, what a blessing this has been. It's one of the best moves that I could ever made. I still got to coach football at LCA with Frank Rocco for years and do volunteer there. So I got to be able to do that. But the lending side of things, my uncle actually owned a company called Westar Mortgage and said, hey, we want to expand to the Central Virginia area. And he said, yeah, I think you'd be really good at doing this. We'd like to open up a ranch there, and had zero experience in. All I knew was football. and zero experience doing it. And he said, but I believe you could do it, do a good job at it. So I had a wife, 2 kids, 2 young kids, 3 and 1 year old at the time. And I came with a fax machine and a computer in my basement, turned that thing on and had no idea what to do. And just started building relationships one by one. Met a realtor at the time by the name of Jackie Kramer, who was putting a sign in a yard, and said, I probably should talk to her. She's a realtor. And went up and talked with Jackie, and Jackie pointed me to some other realtors, and just, really did it the old fashioned way, Alan, to be honest with you. Wasn't a lot of advertising, wasn't a lot of, flair and fluff. It was just get to know people and build relationships with people and earn their trust, and do one loan and then have that person refer you to their friend or their family because they trust you and took good care of them. And it just continued to build and build, and stayed with Westar. My uncle ended up selling Westar to J.G. Wentworth Home Lending, stayed with J.G. Wentworth. J.G. Wentworth got bought by Freedom Mortgage. So I never really moved companies until recently, where I felt as if a lot of people move around in this business. I wanted to be loyal to the company, but it was felt as if it was the right time to make one move. And I did a lot of homework, a lot of research. A lot of companies wanted our branch to be able to be a part of their company. And the bottom line was we came across Alcova Mortgage, and Alcova was as stand-up a company as we could have possibly asked for from a service standpoint, from an integrity standpoint. A company that was started by 3 buddies that went high school together. Alcova stands for Allegheny County, Virginia. And it's 3 guys from Allegheny County, Virginia, that came together and formed a great company. And so they really stood for the values of what we stand for here at our Lynchburg branch. And they built their business on relationships and service. And so we try to do the same, and have really been blessed to be a part of this company for the past year. It's just been over a year now. In fact, it's a year this month. So the mortgage business has been an incredible journey. The thing I love, Alan, that I love about it the most is you coach football, you meet football people, and that's pretty much your circle of friends and who you hang around. My dad was a coach, and so I was always around football people. You get in the mortgage business, you meet everybody from every walk of life. You meet blue collar people, you meet doctors and lawyers and whoever it may be, and everybody's trying to live the American dream of home ownership. And to be able to meet all the different people from all the walks of life has been the friendships that we've gained, the relationships we've gained through that has been probably the most fulfilling part of the job. And watching, people get into live the American dream, get into their dream home, or just starting out with their first home, whatever it may be. So it's been a fun 23 years, and to meet a lot of different personalities and build a lot of really great relationships.
Joined by Jauch with Alcova Mortgage, our Hill City Highlights podcast, episode number 2. Dive in 30,000-foot view, or go to the tarmac if you want to, Joe, on mortgage lending. And there's different loans that prospective home buyers can get. And are you lending just for real estate, or is it personal property? And just kind of educate the fans on your day-to-day and how you do your job.
Sure. Really, it's residential homes is where our focus is. I think people think of mortgages and you think, you go online, you fill out some information, and you go to a mega company that has got a guy who's sitting in a call center somewhere in Michigan, and his job is to get through, and good for them, get through as many calls as you can and try to do as many loan applications as you can. But, buying a home is one of the biggest financial decisions that you'll make in your life. And you have the opportunity either to lose a lot of money through that, or potentially gain a lot of money. The good news is in the Lynchburg area, the appreciation values of homes have risen drastically, and it's a great local market here. When you get a mortgage, you have to look into each and every person's individual situation. Are they a first-time home buyer? How much down payment do they have? What is their credit score? Because people think, hey, I just want a 30-year mortgage. That's it. Well, is a conventional loan best for you? Is an FHA loan best for you? Is a USDA loan best for you? Is a VHDA loan best for you? There's so many different loan programs that are available out there. It's about looking at each individual situation and saying, okay, here is the best program for your current situation that is going to allow you to capitalize the most on building wealth. Because ultimately, obviously, the home is a place you want to live, you want to raise your family, you want to be comfortable, all those things. But the other side, the financial side of it, is owning your home is one of the best ways for wealth building. That's just the bottom line. And so part of that wealth building is making sure that you are in the right mortgage, to make sure that you're gaining as much equity as possible, as much money towards your principal. Mortgage insurance is a huge factor into decision making in mortgages. So we really try to sit down with people and figure out what is their unique circumstance and what is best for them that is going to help them financially create the most wealth.
And from start to finish, when you start talking to prospective clients, to seeing the finish line of closing, is there a typical time frame? And I'm really dumbing this down for those that may not know about the mortgage lending industry. Or is it just different from person to person, couple to couple?
Well, obviously everybody's situation is different. And from some people need credit repair. Some people take 6 months to be able to, hey, I could get you a loan now, but your interest rate's going to be ridiculous high. Why don't we just take 3, 4, 5, 6 months in order to get your credit score up where you can get a much better deal? So it all depends on what people's sense of urgency is. Somebody's under contract. You have a real estate agent bring somebody to you as a referral, and you're able to do the loan application. It goes under contract. We want to get that closed within 30 days. And sometimes some things we pride ourselves on our systems here and how well efficiently run our systems are, where we can do it quicker than 30 days. Some people are a little bit more under the gun. Sometimes it helps them. Somebody else is paying interest on that property. So the sooner they can close, the less interest they have to pay on the property. So, there's all kinds of factors, but each situation is unique. But it is good to be a part of a company that runs things efficiently in order to make sure that we meet closing times and help, most importantly, build relationships with the client first, but also build relationships with local realtors here where you earn their trust, where you're able to take care of their clients first and foremost.
Going by Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage. Final thought on your career, Joe, for prospective clients of yours that come across your name, your company, and call you to start the conversation. Any tips for them, legwork that they need to do to make your job easier? So when they do call you, you ask them, do you have this? Yep, I've got this. So what do they need to make and streamline it, not quicker, but just make the process easier for you? Because you're going to ask them questions that, man, I hope they have this when they do give me a call. Yeah,
what we try to do more than anything, Alan, is we try to make the process easy for them. Now, for me to sit here and say that buying a home is an easy process just isn't true. And buying a home is an important decision. You're going to get looked at. Your finances are going to get looked at. We look at bank statements. We look at pay stubs. We look at W-2s. We look at job history. We look at credit history. We look at credit inquiries. You can just go down the list. You need appraisal done on the property. You need inspections done on the property. So it's really all about putting people, whether that is title companies, real estate agents, appraisers, the borrower, inspectors, everybody jumps in this boat together, and it's trying to be able to row the boat in sync. And I think that is the biggest part of it, is to explain to your clients up front that you're a big part of this, and you gathering your information and getting that information to us in an efficient manner is only going to help you as one major cog in the wheel. And so what we really like to do in terms of our process is we have a link that I can text them directly that link. They can go in there, fill out a full application. They can download up all their documents into that. And then that way I'm able to look at it and make some educated opinions on what is the best mortgage loan for them in their current situation. So we do a really good job with the technology here at Alcova to try to make it as simple and as efficient as possible, so the borrower is able to get the right loan program that best suits them.
Joined by Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage, part of our Hill City Highlights podcast, episode 2, as he shares a little bit about his career, in football and the mortgage lending industry. I really appreciate you sharing some of those jewels with your career, Joe. I do want to go back to what you're doing currently, maybe outside of your day-to-day with your Yacht Talk shirt you have on right now.
Yeah.
And the
Yacht
Liberty
Talk,
Flames
baby.
Central podcast, which is really popular with you and Matt Warner and Emily Austin, dear friends of ours with Liberty Flames. And you started a really cool phenomenon when you do have these guests on the podcast of promoting Alcova Mortgage with the mug and having them look in the camera and say, this Flame Central podcast powered by Alcova Mortgage. How did that all come about on that podcast?
Well, hold on one second. I'll be right back. Hold on. Oh, yeah, there it is right there. Look at those. Look at those three great American patriots right there.
Who's the first person that you got to tout that for you?
I can't remember who was the first one to do that. We had some early guests on there, and Richie McKay was on there pretty early on. So yeah, what Alcova has done is really try to invest into Liberty Athletics, and so we do a big sponsorship with them. Liberty Athletics, obviously, you do radio ads for us, and so we just sponsored the podcast. And so if you can't just have a sponsor, and you just can't say this is brought to you by Alcova Mortgage. These podcasts, whatever you're doing, it needs to be powered. It's all about being powered. Right. So we came up with the term powered by Alcova Mortgage. So and then I just decided to get there was the original. I don't have one here, but the original Yacht Talk mug was the first one to come out. And then he said, well, we got to get, that's such a solid crew right there. We got to put that crew on a mug and then do the Flame Central podcast powered by Alcova Mortgage. So the podcast has been a ton of fun. We really enjoy it. Matt and Emily are great. They're the best. And so we have a really good time, and it's great. If you're a Liberty Athletics fan, and not just football or basketball, just athletics fan in general, overall, we've had some great guests from all kinds of sports and really cover all the sports of Liberty Athletics. And so we just like to have a lot of fun and hopefully people enjoy watching it.
Yeah, it's one of my go-tos on my podcast listening every Monday. Did y'all do one yesterday?
No. It just, it's really, really tragic to hear the sad news of Taj Boyd, who passed away on the football team, the freshman offensive line football player. So our prayers go out to him and his family, and just an awful, so I hate to see anybody have to go through that. So we just sort of, put things on hold right now for this week and let the football team, wrap their hearts and their arms around, Taj and his family and help them deal with a very difficult situation right now.
Yeah, definitely understood. Our well wishes and prayers go out to the Liberty Flames Athletics Department, Liberty University, with the loss of Taj Boyd this week. When it comes to game day, Joe, we've got about 8 minutes left. What's your wheelhouse? Like, you get to use a telestrator, and when the camera is on you or in the midst of a game, what do you really enjoy about broadcasting a game, and what really just gets you energized?
I think more than anything, Alan, is like I said, I grew up around football. I've got 3 older brothers, and my dad, obviously, I've said many times, as a coach. So football was us. It was the Jauch boys. We're undefeated. The Jauch boys, I believe this to be true. The Jauch boys are undefeated to this day in any neighborhood football game whatsoever. And so we pretty much mopped up everybody growing up. And we may not be able to move like we used to these days, but I think we probably still bring home the title if anybody wants to challenge us. So no, I think more than anything, it was, passion for the game and just love what football is, love what it represents, love to watch the athleticism and the great players, the great team, the chess match of the game. And I really like to analyze it and just see, from being raised by a coach, you understand sort of the ins and outs of the game and what to look for and the momentum and a feel and it really just a passion for the game. And I think what really gets me fired up to ask your question is just those big moments and seeing big plays made and seeing not only the players make them, but also how did it come about? What was the scheme? What was the idea behind what they were trying to do? the influence of how coaches set up plays. You run certain plays to set up other plays, and to be able to take advantage of defensive or offensive situations, blitzes and coverages and quarterback thoughts, and all the way across the board. And so it's always been my passion, and I just love especially college football. And it really is, it's fun being in the booth. And like you said, once again, with a guy like Matt Warner, who is the same way himself, it's an enjoyable experience.
You mentioned you love college football, Joe. For those around Lynchburg that do know you as a friend and a business colleague, pickleball is close to your heart as well. So we're going to wrap things up. Got about 5.5 minutes. Pickleball, when did you first pick it up, pun intended? And when people bring up pickleball, I mention you immediately as the king of Lynchburg and the surrounding area of pickleball. So why pickleball, and where did you start your love for it?
Oh my goodness, we may need more than 5 minutes for this, but I'll try to wrap it up in the 5 minutes. Had a good friend of mine that I played football with in Montreal by the name of Joe Krolick. He played University of Washington, won a national championship there in the early 90s. And he was from Washington, where pickleball started. And I'd never played ever. And my wife and I bought a house here in Lynchburg, and it had an old tennis court on it. And so I didn't play tennis growing up, wasn't interested in it. And it just sat there and sort of got dilapidated. And my wife looked at me one day and said, "You either do something with that court or blow it up and plant grass." And so Joe had said to me, "You should try pickleball." I didn't know what pickleball was, never played it. But anyways, long story short, ended up resurfacing the tennis court and turning it into pickleball courts. I never played ever. Never watched a video. It almost came purposeful after we started doing the courts. Until the courts were done, I hadn't seen a paddle, hadn't seen a ball. And I had a good friend of mine by the name of Doug Smith, who was my neighbor. And he's an older guy in his early 70s, and said, "Hey, I love playing pickleball." So he came over, showed me how to play, and we started playing. And then people just honestly started coming out of the woodwork. And we formed what is called the JPL, the Jauch Pickleball League. And it has say the words "taken off" as an understatement. We're on season 7 coming up right now. We've got 2 divisions that we play in, and then they play for the championship, the Silverback Cup it's called. And then we've got all kinds of committees, and I've got a VP of internal operations. We got a membership committee, a competition committee. We got a guy named Rambo. We call him Rambo. We refer to him as Pope Rambo. So he is the director of spiritual development. We've got, we can go across the board with all the different committees. We have a Christmas party. We've even formed a band they called the Pickle Boys. And the Pickle Boys have now performed at the Pickleball JPL Christmas party. And they've also performed at the Member Guest, which is held in June. A big party out at my place, and everybody comes out. And the Pickle Boys performed on a big old flatbed trailer and play all the old classics. And so the league has gotten incredibly serious, like ridiculously serious. Playoffs, everything, and we're heading into season 7. Got my new partner, who's going to be Ryan Barr, who's a Liberty guy, good pickleball player. So it's going to be an exciting season. And to give you an idea what it's like, there's now 18 members, and there's a sub list because, for whatever reason, 3 or 4 of the guys can't make it because they're out of town. We play every Tuesday night under the lights. We refer to the courts as Hell's Half Acre. And we play under the Tuesday nights under the lights at Hell's Half Acre. And for whatever reason, 3 or 4 people can't make it. They're out of town, whatever it may be, another obligation. So we have subs. Well, if you're on the sub list, there's probably 40 people on the sub list that are trying to get in to be a sub for a night. So it is absolutely blowing up, and it is probably. I'm a big golfer, and I'll say this now, and I love golf. Pickleball is probably the funnest sport that I've ever played, especially if you can get decent at it. Once you get decent at it, it becomes pretty fun.
He's Joe Jauch with Alcova Mortgage, the JPL and Liberty
CEO. My CEO is my title now.
Okay, he does golf in Lynchburg, and We're tickled that he has been a guest on our Hill City Highlights podcast, episode 2. And give us a rate, review. Let us know where you're listening from. And Joe, we just appreciate your time here today. God bless you and what you do around the community.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hill City Highlights podcast. Have an idea for future shows? Email our team at hillcitypod@gmail.com. And join us each week for another episode of the Hill City Highlights podcast.